And this is a wild mustard green. It's a weed that I have in my garden, but I like it. So I saved the seeds and I planted them, and man, did they come in good. And look at them, almost pest free. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and it's time for another State of the Harvest video where I take you around the garden and show you what this time of year, this is like the first week of June, what's available to eat. It's still early days, really. July, August is when things get really heavy, but there's still some things around, some things happening here, some things I'm harvesting and using in my meals. So I thought I'd show you that. The mosquitoes are at, you know how like the weather, when they talk about the UV, they have like condition yellow, orange, red. Well, the black flies right now are at condition homicide. So I'm going to keep this video brief. I had to cover myself in a chemical cocktail just to be able to shoot this video. But let's take a little walk around and show you what I'm harvesting out of the garden right now. Come on. All right, so immediately to my right, just coming in the front entrance of the garden, I got these, they're kind of like a butter lettuce. And I moved these, a number of weeks ago, and they looked like they were going to die for about 2 weeks. But now they're looking kind of healthy. They look pretty good. So yeah, I pulled off all the bad leaves maybe a week or so ago, and they finally adapted. Although there's some evidence that they're like this here. See this sign? This one's about to bolt. You can kind of tell because it's making this pointy thing here, right? These ones not so much, right? So I got to harvest it. I should just cut this whole one off today and have it with my lunch. Once they bolt, they become bitter. I've got the French sorrel. You know, again, you wouldn't eat this as a main meal. You'd have it with things. Excellent in soups. Adds a real distinct flavor. Makes a big difference. Like if you make a chicken soup and you add this, whole nother level. But on its own, it almost does not taste like weeds, basically. Not weeds. This one over here is, I don't know why this one looks so different. Isn't that interesting? Different leaf pattern. Just noticed that. Anyway, I've got the herbs here. I'll show you the rest of my herbs later on, but they're of size now that they can be harvested. This is winter savory. Perennial, comes back every year. More winter savory here. Got the bloody dock, which is like a green. Again, it's like the sorrel. You added two things. You don't have it on its own. Great in soups. It's got a kind of a citrusy flavor, very strong flavor. If you put I made some kale the other day where it was like 1/3 this, and the family complained. Let's just put it that way. So my wife didn't have the leftovers for lunch the next day, for sure. I had to eat it all. But you know, if you're a dad, you probably realize that you're half man, half trash can when it comes to using up leftovers anyway, or half compost bin, I guess. Here's some lettuce I moved, just to give you a contrast. I moved this just the other day, maybe 3 days ago, and it's been crazy hot here for this time of year. Like almost 30 Celsius, which for here, this time of year is like nuclear temperature, right? Anyway, so yeah, looking a little more forlorn, right? And of course, because they're weak in the snails and different things are getting at them. Generally speaking, I find my lettuce doesn't get attacked too badly by pests. But when you move it, oh yeah, I mean, you can see all these sort of lower leaves are just getting, and that's the ones they seem to want to attack too, the weakened leaves. Anyway, so there's that. That'll be sort of online in a week or so, ready for harvest. Got some kale here. It needs to be thin, but we are eating and harvesting this. This kale here was thinned out. That's why it looks a little bit more rational in terms of how it's laid out. Ready for harvest. 2 different kinds of kale. This is like a red Russian or Siberian kale. And this is like a Scotch curly kale type thing. I think it's called blue Scotch curly kale. And this spinach doesn't look like much, but that's because almost every other day I harvest all the big leaves. So I've been picking away at the spinach. And the idea is that once the spinach bolts, I'll just mulch it over. And then there'll be enough room for the kale and the two rows of kale. This is a 4-foot wide garden. There'll be enough room for the kale to sort of spread and branch out. So I like this system of spinach in the middle, kale on the sides. This garden here, all this stuff's going to be ripped out really soon. But I planted some fast-growing things underneath a dome in, I don't know, late March. Not all of them grew, but some spinach, and like, see, most of the spinach failed for some reason. I don't know why, but because the spinach in another bed did fine. But anyway, I got spinach there. And this is a wild mustard green. It's a weed that I have in my garden, but I like it. So I saved the seeds and I planted them, and man, did they come in good. And look at them, almost pest free. Right? They got a strong taste, I'm not going to lie to you. But I like them. I like them as a side dish. Little garlic, little olive oil. Zesty, very zesty. So I like them. Anyway, this all has to be ripped out really soon because I'm supposed to be planting a heat-loving crop here. But anyway, for now, they're there. And people remember I planted a dandelion, Italian punto dandelion. I think this is what this is. I've tasted the greens. They taste good. It's the only thing I can think of that might be. I'll have to look up some pictures online. Anyway, these greens taste quite good, and but it's the only one that germinated, so I must have planted them too deep or something. I must have done something wrong in how I planted them. Definitely going to give them a try again next year. Got lots of garlic growing in the garden, and of course, as I mentioned before, you can harvest the greens as you need them. The garlic scapes have not emerged yet, but it's still early for that. I find that'll happen more like late June, early July, usually. Although it's been so hot, that can make things happen. But anyway, every time I need a garlic flavor, I can grab the greens for sure. You just grab like one off each plant. We'd never want to strip a garlic of its greens, but you can take one or two off each stalk. That won't harm the plant too much, especially take the lower ones. Over here, I got these are beets that I planted last week of March, early April, under a plastic dome. They're getting large enough where I can harvest the greens. Now, as I've mentioned before, with a lot of things like this, I wouldn't harvest. Some of the beans need to be thin, so you take the whole plant. But other ones, if you wanted to have a mess of greens as a side dish, you just take one leaf per plant, sort of thing. And you got a whole garden like this, you can fill a bowl that way, and it doesn't really impact any one plant too badly. Because remember, the plant needs its leaves to gather energy from the sun, so you don't want to rob it of that capacity. Lots of rhubarb growing right now. Gave some to my mom last night. You can see a little bit of a mess there. That's just from, hacking them out, and the mosquitoes were unbelievably bad, and we didn't have any bug dope on or anything like that. But yeah, lots of rhubarb. Actually, this year the rhubarb, if you ever see this, rhubarb's going to seed. See that? You want to cut those off. I should have cut those off a week ago. When you see this thing like this emerging, just cut it off at the base. It doesn't do anything for your plant. It just robs it of energy. And the seeds aren't going to really give you rhubarb. The seeds actually look like rye, believe it or not. But there's just no point in letting the plant go to flower like that. Some people have asked me about my asparagus. There it is. This is like year, I think, 4 for the asparagus. And so it's past the point of the season where you'd harvest it. This is the point now where you just let it grow and gather energy and store energy in its roots for the next year, right? So that's where my asparagus is. Okay, it's come and gone since the last State of the Harvest video. Here's my Egyptian walking onions, and you can see a lot of them are going to seed, making their babies. So I'll have to give, this will make almost like a garlic-like head with lots of different little cloves, and when the whole thing flops over, those will actually root themselves into the ground. But you can actually pick them up and plant them where you want. That's how all the ones in the middle got planted last November. Right, so you just let them go about their business. But whenever you want shallots or anything like that, you just cut one of these off, right? Only some of them form these bulbils. You'll see they get much bigger, much thicker, much round, much more cylindrical. But the thinner ones are the ones you harvest for, putting in your omelet, having with your potato salad or whatever, right? Whatever you're doing. Just a perpetual source of onions. And you can also pull them up and use if you actually pull them, the onion that's underneath there is more like a very, very small onion or a shallot, maybe 2 inches in diameter at the largest, usually more like 1.5 inches. Anyway, great perennial. I am hooked on Egyptian walking onions, and we'll give these away to anyone that'll have them. I thought I'd share a little bit of progress. These are hascap berries. They're not ready yet, but they're beginning to form. I don't know how well you can see that, but the berries are forming. Right, so I don't know, probably be another few weeks before they're ready. But yeah, I've got this is year 2. These were planted last year, gifted to me by Whiffle Tree Farms. And yeah, they're producing berries in year 2. So that's pretty cool. The lovage that I moved this year has recovered. There's still a few kind of crappy looking leaves, but you can see the new growth. It's got a nice green color and it's doing all right. This would normally be maybe 3 feet high by now, and it would normally achieve a height of 6 feet or more. But because I moved it this year, it's probably going to spend the whole year just sort of recovering from that. But anyway, still, you don't need a lot of this to make a big change for a meal. One piece like this is all you need to infuse a good celery flavor into an entire pasta dish, pot of soup, or so on. If you want it really strong celery flavor, you add 2 pieces. So you don't need a lot, right? Now these aren't ready for harvest yet, but I just thought I'd share with people that are interested. The Saskatoons. This is the first. I've had these in the garden for 5 years, and this is the first year they've actually, looks like they're forming a berry. Herbs. I got some nice, big, fat, healthy oregano here. This is ready. This is ready for harvest and ready to be used, and I'm using it. Here's some just wild amaranth, I guess you'd call it. There's probably some name for this weed. This is the time of year when it starts going like this. You want to snap those seed heads off. You can eat these. You can use them in dishes, right? The seed heads. I'm sure they're good for you. I never died from eating them. But you don't want to let these seeds fall in your garden, right? You'll get a million of them growing. So just snap them off and eat them, or toss them in the woods. Some more oregano over here. This was moved last year, so just for those that are new to like perennial herbs, different varieties of oregano are certainly perennial and hardy to, some pretty cold zones. So this one's fine. I moved it last year. It didn't grow that much, but look at it now, right? This, I guess the bouquet might have been 2-3 inches wide last year, as I recall. But look at the size of it now, right? Same with that one over there. Just beautiful. We eat a lot of oregano. We eat it fresh, and I also dry it. It's just a wonderful herb. Dries easily, and we have this dish we make called. I started when the kids were little. I would call it herby pasta, which the kids seem to like a lot. So I might make that this evening for supper. Here's my driveway herb garden, and all the herbs are ready to be used right now. We got now these were getting too big and too thick, so I pulled them all out and chopped them up into pieces and put them back in, and gave the hunks to my neighbors, right? Because a lot of herbs you can do that with. So they're at a fraction of the size they would normally at. This plant is not very happy with me for having pulled it out of the ground and stuck it back in. But anyway, that's oregano. That's sage. That's tarragon. This one was pulled out and put back into. This is normally an enormous sage plant. So I thought I would shrink this one this year and do this one next year, so I have a big supply of sage. The main thing I use sage for, this is actually going to flour. When I'm boiling pasta, I put the flours and the stalks, all that stuff in with the water, and it infuses that sage flavor into the noodles. I don't know if that's a sacrilege. I don't really have an Italian heritage or anything like that, but I like it. You can use it in soups. You can use it in lots of things, right? Sage is a lovely herb, but yeah, things like this where you wouldn't really know what to do with them. You just cut the whole stalk off, throw it in with the pasta water, and it just infuses the flavor into the pasta. Here's more winter savory, beautiful bush right there. This is my rosemary, 2 plants that overwintered outdoors here under just a little, plastic microclimate sort of thing. And look, they're coming in strong. They're doing great. Right, and I changed the driveway a little bit. I used to have a big garbage bin here. That way is west. I changed the location of the garbage bin so they can get the afternoon sun. So I think these are going to do a lot better this year. And really, they basically got the root systems they established last summer, and they're getting more sun, right? So I think they're going to do great. Already they seem just so much more, like these were transplants I bought. The transplant would have been the size of this one piece. And now look what I got. I got a bush, right? You know, rosemary is a zone 8 plant. I'm in zone 6. So they wouldn't normally survive like this, and a lot of people keep them in pots over the winter and bring them back out. I kind of like leaving things in the ground, keep the roots happy, right? So yeah, I figured out a way to keep this outside all year, not too hard, and seems to work. And this is thyme, I believe. I think this is thyme by the smell. Yeah, what a lovely smell, right? So use that for lots of dishes too. I use a lot of herbs for a lot of dishes. I'm not a vegetarian, but I have a fairly plant-based diet. We have a lot of the dishes in our meals are plant-based. And things like garlic and onions and all these different herbs and aromatics, all those things make a huge difference in the level of flavor of your meal. I'm also, you know, completely dairy intolerant sort of thing. So, well, when you can't add butter and cheese and things like that to your meal, you have to learn to cook a whole nother way. And I found using aromatics, using herbs, you know, and, you know, being not really holding back with the salt and the pepper and that sort of stuff. Hello, look at this little guy. Probably gonna try to get into my my compost bin. Get out of there. So that's where we are at this juncture, at this point in time. I think it's like June 7th today, as I recall. You know, some things are happening. We're harvesting some stuff. A lot of things growing in the garden. A lot of things I still haven't put in the garden actually yet. I still have to plant some things. I've been very lazy this year. I don't know why. I'm a little bit behind schedule. So the heat we've had lately, there's no reason. I got no excuse. You know, we've had a lot of cold nights right up until very recently. So I've been using those as an excuse not to do anything. I got no more excuses. I got to get everything in the ground. Flies or no, I got to do it. It's time to do it. Anyway. I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Click the bell if you want to be notified when I make new videos. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.